Hello and welcome to Cornish Walking Trails. Today we're thinking about the Minack.
I'm thinking, where is it?
It's like hidden over that headland. The important thing to understand is we're going to tell you something about the Minack that you probably don't know. In this video we're going to explain how Rowena Cade really felt about the Minack. So she clearly says, I often wish that the theatre had been built over there. The Minack is actually in the wrong place. Can you believe that? The Minack is in the wrong place. And we're going to show you where it could have been.
So if history was different, this
would have been a theatre.
The site of the Minack Theatre.
Wow! High five, mate. I think we found it. Hello, everybody. We're on Cornwall Beach. Just up on the cliff top is the Minack Theatre. And if you've been to Cornwall, you would probably visited the Minack at some point to watch a play. It's magical, set on the cliff top. The sea is the backdrop. The beauty of it is renowned. And it is one of the most successful theatres in the world, in a kind of climate where every theatre is struggling to make money and draw an audience. The Minack continues to be as popular as ever. But was that always the vision that Rowena Cade had when she laid that first foundation stone back in the 1930s? So we have a brochure published by the Minack that tells the story of the Minack, the spin that they want you to know. They want you to think that Rowena Cade had this vision from the outset that she was going to create this magnificent theatre and everybody would come and enjoy it, that it would be something, it would be her legacy that she would be remembered for. But is that necessarily the truth?
So it says in here, it says the Minack Theatre was the vision of one woman, and the theatre's history is wrapped up in the life of its master builder, Rowena Cade. So what do we know of Rowena Cade? Well, she's not Cornish, but she moved to Cornwall when she was quite young. She was in her mid-20s, originally from Derbyshire, from quite a well-to-do family. Her father had died, I think, in 1918, and she came here with her mother, fell in love with Porthcurno, and they not only settled here, they actually bought the headland. It's £100 it cost them back then. They bought it and they had their property, their house built up there.
So interestingly, this pamphlet and the Minack's website want you to believe that Rowena Cade was this visionary and master builder, and granted, she really worked hard on this. But I don't know that she did it in the sense that they are portraying.
It's possibly not quite so simple as
no, not as romantic or as determined.
Yeah, so, I mean, basically what they're saying is two things. That she was the visionary.
Yeah.
Right, she had this vision of this incredible open-air theatre that everybody was going to come and enjoy, wasn't it? And that she built it all.
Yes.
Yeah, on her own, pretty much,
Yeah.
Wasn't it? But, I mean, that's an incredible image. It's quite powerful, isn't it?
Yes.
But I think that the truth is possibly a little bit different.
In this book, it's actually a brochure, a magazine called the Cornish Review. It's put together by Dennis Val Baker. He printed these like every quarter for about 5 or 6 years, and the local community contributed to it, the drama, the cultural community. They wrote articles for this publication. This one here is called the Minack Theatre, written by Frank Ruhrmund, who was actually a friend of Rowena Cade, and I love the way he starts this. So this is going back to 1966, and he says, early this year I pushed an ancient lawnmower across the grass-topped tiers of seats at the Minack Theatre. Last year I helped carry buckets of earth from the stage to the top of the auditorium, while its owner and creator, Miss Rowena Cade, was busy relaying the stage floor. So Rowena Cade had a hands-on contribution to the theatre, which we all know, that's the normal spin on it. And she says it might be fair to say that, like Topsy, it just growed. And of course it did, but not without lavishing thousands of hours of hard labour upon it to meet the demands of the ever-increasing patrons and popularity. So the function of the theatre was getting bigger. The demand from people to watch productions here was increasing. This is the bit they don't tell you. So this is obviously a conversation between friends, and she was reluctant in some sense. It certainly comes across in this article how reluctant she was to kind of have this in her garden. I think she thought, yeah, it doesn't matter for a couple of weeks or a couple of years, it won't be there forever. And suddenly, because of its popularity, it was, and she had to bear the cost of it. Now, before they actually started to level all the ground, this is the bit I love, they looked in fact across the curling sounds of Pedden Bounder to the headland Treen Diners at the slope of a bog and grass below the Luggan Rock. So it's over there. They actually wanted to maybe put it over there. Can you believe that? The Minack is in the wrong place. In this article she does give some insight and reveals how hard it was to actually build the theatre. There was nothing there. It was built in a zorn, which is like a crag into the cliff. Zorns were used in the tin mining industry to identify what type of rocks you had on the cliff. Anyway, that aside, you need to understand it's just a severe crevice in the cliff. So her gardener, Billy Rawlings, and his brother-in-law Charles Thomas Ango cut up rocks by hand to actually start laying the foundations of the stage. Then she says a few slices fell into the zorn as they split and were followed by some rich dialect expressions of regret. I just wish I'd been there.
I don't know, some of those lumps are having to move around though. They were huge, weren't they? And they didn't have the machinery back then to do it. It was all done by hand.
Yeah.
So she kind of had the vision, and she was involved day to day, and
Very involved.
Got involved, didn't she? But she had two people there at her beck and call, I suppose, that were doing most of the heavy lifting.
Heavy lifting. Yeah, I think that's how I read it as well.
Okay.
Yeah. The theatre was ready in 1932, and it held its very first production of The Tempest. It actually got to the national headlines, and the Times commented, "Short of securing an island and wrecking a ship on its coast, there could be no more ideal setting for The Tempest than these cliffs." And from then on, they didn't really look back. They started to increase the number of productions, they needed more space, they needed dressing rooms, and the popularity of the place just grew and grew. So I think this old publication proves that Rowena Cade didn't only employ her own gardeners in building the Minack, but she had help. The author himself volunteered. And anybody who's put on a production in a local village hall will know it's a team effort that's involved. It also proves this was an organic process. It grew as demand grew. It wasn't a vision of one woman. How she felt about it we'll go into later in the video. So Rowena Cade worked really hard on the Minack. There is absolutely no doubt about that. And she did finance a lot of it, her and her gardener and one other person. They built this structure, this amazing theatre with the stage and the dressing rooms. I just found that incredible. Obviously it took a while, but to achieve something like that on this coastline, just look over there. It looked like that. I wouldn't even know where to start. So you guys know that when we do our videos, we'll grab an old publication or two to help us tell the story. But there is something else that we use, and it's called Readly. It's an app. You download it, sign in, and you get 2 months free trial, cancel anytime, and you can browse through old publications, over 7,000 of them, and current publications.
Yeah, I mean, for researching this one, I mean, I actually typed in Minack, and because there's a great search facility on Readly, and I found an edition from Country Life magazine, and it's not the current magazine, it's one from earlier on this year. And the great thing about Readly, it lets you go back and look at old copies. So there was a really good article on it all about Rowena Cade, and you're able to bookmark it, which is really good, and you can press the button on there, you can actually read the article in a little bit bigger print if you wanted to, because sometimes it's a bit difficult reading perhaps on your phone and stuff like that, isn't it?
Or when you get a bit older like us.
That's true.
The other great thing is that we've actually been able to download it onto our phones, so no signal, no problem. You can actually just read it on the go. And you haven't got all of that paper stacking up in the corner. It's a lot more space saving and far more environmentally friendly.
It ticks a lot of boxes.
It does. Did you know as well, it'll suggest things, and today when I went in, it's got the BBC Good Food magazine, and their latest Christmas cake is a chocolate cake.
Oh, that sounds good.
It looked really scrummy. I think I might have to have a go at that one.
Well, yeah. I mean, you know, I like taking. I dabble a bit in photography, and you know, when you're somewhere like this,
yeah,
it's such a great opportunity, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I've been looking through some of the photography magazines on there, and I get very jealous because I look at these fabulous images people take and think, why can't I do that? And I've also been looking. I mean, we're planning a little bit of a short little break earlier in the new year, aren't we? So I've been looking at 1 or 2 locations in the UK, maybe for a little staycation. Yes.
Sounds good to me. But you do get 2 months free if you use this QR code that's coming up on the screen now. It'll take you straight there. You can download the app, sign in, you'll get 2 months free, and you can cancel any time.
Yeah, it's readly.com/Cornish Walking Trails, or follow the link on the QR code. You got 2 months, you can have a really good dig around on Readly, make sure it's for you, and as Sarah said, you could cancel at any time.
So, going back to today's video, we've still got 1 or 2 revelations to show you about Rowena Cade. We're going to pick up the South West Coast Path now.
It's up there.
Come on then.
Just before we leave this wonderful beach, and this is part of the headland. She actually owned the whole headland for £100.
100 quid she gave for it.
This is connected to Rowena Cade as well.
Yeah, it doesn't look quite so pretty.
It doesn't, does it?
No.
It's a fabulous thing. Let's tell you about it.
So this rather, what is now quite an ugly looking structure, was actually a Wendy house, and it was built by Rowena Cade for her nieces and nephews to play in on the beach. I mean, how fantastic. You come tumbling down to the beach and you've got your own little Wendy house. It doesn't look so good now, but here's some pictures of what it used to look like. So it even had its own little fireplace in there, a little seat and a room upstairs with a staircase. As a child, can you imagine? You'd have this view. Although I don't expect many children would appreciate how magnificent this view is. They'd be way too busy playing, wouldn't they?
Those old images, they look wonderful, don't they?
Yeah.
It's a shame now it's looking like this. Apparently it started to be vandalised, and I suppose it was an issue for safety maybe, and they've obviously barricaded it up.
Yeah,
imagine if this was actually as it used to be. That would be on Airbnb now, wouldn't it? How much would that go for? Waking up to that view every day.
Hang on, where's the high tide mark?
Oh, yeah.
oh yeah, you're quite safe. It's where the seaweed is, isn't it? Yeah, okay, I'd consider that.
You could open up your front door and just have a little paddle. So, Rowena Cade was proposing that the Minack was somewhere else. I mean, I can't even imagine it being somewhere different.
No,
but,
I know.
And where she's proposing it would be, it's quite a walk, isn't it?
About a mile or so that way.
You're not going to get, you know, people wanting to watch a production climbing up here to go and look at it, are you?
Good point. That is Minack House, and Rowena Cade built that for herself and her mother, and then a bit later on her sister, who was living in Australia at the time, left her husband and came back to Britain with 2 young children. So Rowena Cade had some more rooms put on. Her sister was a writer, and then she extended as a single story where her sister could write.
I also read, I also read that Rowena Cade, I mean, she wasn't flushed with money, was she? A lot of the money went into this.
Yeah.
And at one point, she was living in that annex on her own, and she was renting out the main house.
Oh, was she?
Getting some money in that way.
So she had a lodger.
She
to pay
did.
the rent.
Early form of Airbnb.
But you can actually see from here where that single-story extension that her sister used to write in. You can clearly see it there.
And do you think that would be? Do you think that's more modern, that bit?
Possibly, I don't know, but it's the only single-story extension there. It looks like 2 properties now, doesn't it? Oh, he's a good boy. You get one first, and then you do anything for a bacon-flavoured treat, don't I? So anyway, back to our book and Rowena Cade's candid interview. Don't know that it was such a strict thing as an interview, but she actually said, after it was built and in place and productions were going on, she said, "I often wish the theatre had been built over there. I've tried to give the darn thing away on at least 3 occasions, but no one would have it." So nobody wanted to take the theatre off her hands once it was up and running, and she was left to finance the burden of financing and maintaining the theatre right up into her 70s. The lovely thing that comes from that interview is that she had this close working relationship with 2 guys that helped her build the Minack, and obviously she seems to have been able to pull volunteers in to help her as well. And you get the sense that this was really done for the community. And when she says about trying to sell it, she couldn't give the darn thing away. Kind of gives you a sense of her love-hate relationship that she had with the theatre. So obviously took an awful lot of her time in terms of free labour to keep it in tip-top condition. A lot of hours of lugging heavy stuff around. Must have been exhausting.
I think that's incredible. So she couldn't even give it away. Nobody wanted it. She offered it to the National Trust. They turned it down. How much would that be worth to them now if they had that?
Yeah. The other thing she tried to do was to get the council involved, which is one of the things that would support culture and drama events, isn't it? And they did kind of get this relationship going, but it never took off. It never really had feet. And she did a lot of work. She put in a wall around her house to divide her house from the actual theatre, and they complied with everything. The council, however, didn't come up with the goods. One of the suggestions was that it be a new road, and they never built it. And if anybody has driven up the road to the Minack, they will know it is quite a scary, narrow, steep, windy road.
Well, I wondered if that road was put in after that was written, because that was back in 1966,
possibly.
wasn't it? The thing I did take out of that, though, because as I said, written in 1966, that review, it's quite, you know, she's been very honest with this chap, isn't it? And it's her feelings coming across, isn't it? Yeah, the impression I got was that she was approaching 70, at an age when most people would be wanting to retire, isn't it? Or already be retired.
Yes, and be done with work.
Yeah, and she was obviously worried about it. It was a burden. It did feel, the way she was writing it and explaining it, but the whole thing had become a bit too big and had become a burden for her, and she didn't know what to do with it.
And she didn't expect to still be looking after this thing in her 70s.
No.
Yeah. So eventually there was a trust formed, and it has passed away from the family now, hasn't it? And it's become what it is today.
It's incredibly successful, isn't it? It's one of the go-to places in Cornwall, isn't it?
And like we said earlier, it is amazing that everybody will flock to that theatre. But there's theatres like in the centre of cities these days that hardly have an audience. It is quite mind-blowing.
Yeah, but the thing about that, though, is it's the view, isn't it? It's got the best view in the world.
It's the location. It is the setting.
I bet you that every one of those visitors that goes to the Minack today, and it's popular all through the year, isn't it? I bet none of them know that Rowena Cade didn't really want the Minack at the bottom of a garden. She thought the better location for it was where we're heading now.
Yeah, you're probably right. Okay, just to give you some idea on a modern map, the Minack is on this headland here. So we've come across Porthcurno Beach, picked up the southwest coast path, and we're heading out to Luggan Rock here. So it's quite a long way, really. If you're enjoying our video today, why not hit that subscribe button? It really helps us out. Give us a like, and if you've got something to add, by all means put it in the comments. We do love getting your comments. Absolute disaster. They were meant to walk past me.
Never film with husbands and animals.
Yeah.
That's what they say, isn't it?
One of the things I find quite remarkable about the Minack is how it developed, really. Today I can't see anyone being able to mimic what she did, to have a theatre at the bottom of the garden, to have paying guests to see a performance, without somebody in the neighbourhood ringing the council and complaining. I don't think today it could happen. Just got to a point where we've got this stunning view of the headland where Luggan Rock is, the rock that actually rocks. In Cornish, Luggan means rocking, so the stone did used to rock. And we were just wondering, is this the place where they were considering having the theatre? So it says they looked in fact across the curling sands of Pednibounder to the headland of Llwyndainus at a slope of bog and grass below the Luggan Rock. So I think maybe it's a little bit further on.
Yeah, so well, Pednibounder is the beach,
yeah,
isn't it? Which we'll go and
only just inside.
Yeah, we'll go and get a better view of that. Yeah, well, I don't think it's here then. I think we need to go on a bit further, don't we?
Yeah. Okay.
Lovely view though. Look at that.
I know. So, bearing in mind, she said near Luggan Rock on a boggy patch of ground.
Yes.
On the cliff top.
Above Pednibounder Beach.
Yes.
Is that what she said?
Yeah. So there's a great big green patch here.
It would be a natural setting. It's banked, isn't it? You'd have a good view. You could
stage down towards the sea.
Probably a little bit closer over on this right-hand side, I would have thought.
Yeah.
It would work, wouldn't it? I can see why she was thinking like that. Okay. Probably a lot easier than what they had to do over there with moving all those rocks.
To confirm our thinking, we walked a little further to see if there's anywhere else that would match Rowena's description in this clifftop area. I'm so tempted to play a little trick on Andrew. Should we do it? Andrew, you can't go any further!
Why not?
Oh, it's being dramatic.
Oh! You had me there. I tell you what is dramatic.
What's that?
The view. Look at that.
It is something special. This is in fact the beach that Rowena Cade is talking about, Pednibounder. This is the beach that appears on Instagram all the time with the beautiful colour of the sea created by that white golden sand and the shallow depth of water. You've actually got a bar of sand that makes a pond, a paddle of the sea close to the beach. Traditionally, it was a nudist beach and it is notoriously difficult to get down to. We've never actually done that. We definitely haven't filmed it for the channel. Perhaps we'll do it one day. No doggies, though.
Don't tell anyone, Sarah, but I've had a great idea for our video for April Fool's Day next year.
Yeah.
It'll all be about the new lift system we're installing so you can get down onto Pednibounder Beach. Do you reckon people will believe that? Don't tell anyone. It'll be a nice secret for everyone.
Like, people would pay.
Do you think so?
We've been walking for probably about half an hour now. We went all the way up to the Minack and we've climbed the cliff path, followed it for about half an hour, like I said. I don't think a theatre in this area would have worked. People probably wouldn't have supported it. Over where her house is, there had to be an access, and she had enough room to accommodate vehicles and the people and all of the production. So I wonder if it had been here somewhere, would it still be here? Look at my boys, they're so cute. Have you seen over on my left?
Yeah, I think I've worked it out.
We've got to a point in the Southwest Coast Path where over there it continues down to Penberth. Now there is a mound that is the fortification from the Iron Age, and that's Trindinus Castle. And if we follow the headland down, that is Luggan Headland. So that gives you a bit of an idea of the geography that we're dealing with here. It's very steep, covered in stone, full of granite, bracken and gorse.
There was a clue. There was a clue in what she said, where she wanted the Minack to be, where she thought would be a better site. And I'm pretty sure it's here. And the clue is, she said it was slightly boggy ground.
Yeah, which is unusual for a cliff top.
Because where we thought it was, which is where we're stood at the moment,
yeah,
this is just a grazing field, isn't it? I would describe this as boggy land, is it? Let's get that out and read it again. Go down there and see if that all makes sense.
What if we sink?
Dramatic. Wouldn't it? What a way to go out.
They looked, in fact, across the curling sands of Pednavounder to the headland of Trindinus, at a slope of bog and grass below the Luggan Rock.
So in the interest of research, I've left Sarah over there with the dogs. I've come all the way around. I'm just going to go down and see if this land down here is slightly boggy, because I think that will be conclusive proof. Yeah, this is definitely boggy. Look, you can see all the water here. Look at this. This land is definitely boggy. I found the proof, Sarah. It's boggy down there. It ticks all those boxes. It's overlooking. There's a tiny little beach there at the foot of the headland here at Trindinus. You've got Loganstone over to the left. You've got views across to Pednavounder on the right. It meets the description of what she said when she had that interview back in 1966. Wow.
So we're at that head of that area now, and the lay of it would make for a perfect theatre, wouldn't it? It gently slopes away, and the types of plants would indicate it's boggy. Ah, in fact, it's feeling softer under my feet.
This is a natural amphitheatre, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's out the wind. If you notice, the wind has dropped completely.
You would be able to hear the actors, wouldn't you?
Yeah, you can't hear the sea.
I think this is it. I think this is where it would have been.
Wow.
So if history was different, this
would have been a theatre.
The site of the Minack Theatre.
Wow! High five, mate. I think we found it. So she clearly says, I often wish that the theatre had been built over there. They looked, in fact, across the curling sands of Pednavounder to the headland of Trindinus, at a slope of bog and grass below the Luggan Rock, but this proved too difficult. The only thing that I would say, we're not quite below the Luggan Rock.
Oh yeah, it's right, but it's right above your head there.
That's true.
You know, and if I think it's in there. It matches it. That's the only boggy land, and she talks about it being boggy, doesn't she?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think we found it. When we started this video today, I didn't think that we would find anything that matched the description that was given in that old brochure. And I think we found it. I think we have found the site that Rowena Cade proposed as the Minack Theatre. Would it have been called the Minack Theatre? Perhaps it would have been called something else theatre. Kind of glad it's not here. I'm so glad we have the Minack.
The Bog Theatre.
It would have been Treen Theatre, wouldn't it? So we set off today to try and tell you something you didn't know about the Minack. That the Minack wasn't meant to be where it is today.
It's in the wrong place. Here we are. So that's so you won't find that on the internet, right? That's an old publication, isn't it? That was an interview that she gave when she was about 70 to a friend, and she told him that she didn't really want the Minack where it was, and she gave him a good description of where she felt it should be instead, and I think we found it today.
Brilliant. And she wanted to get rid of the darn thing.
She couldn't get rid of it.
Give it away.
Nobody wanted it. How times have changed.
So I've really enjoyed doing a little bit of a deeper delve into the Minack Theatre today, and I hope you've enjoyed it too. Until next time, we'll say bye-bye for now.
Bye-bye.